The Chargers let one slip away on Monday Night Football against the Cardinals as their offense continually failed to get into the end zone. For the first time this season, it felt like the Chargers chargered this game away.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering this team now for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers for making us your first listen today. Especially after a tough loss like that, we appreciate you guys. To make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, the Chargers drop a very, very frustrating game on Monday Night Football to the Arizona Cardinals, where the Chargers offense could not score touchdowns. They scored all their points off of field goals. On defense, they played pretty well, but it was a couple of big plays that was the difference between winning and losing on the defensive side. A lot of problems, a lot of things to fix, a lot of issues to talk about in this really frustrating football game.
Yeah, at the end of the day, they just weren't good enough, and they just lost to a bad team. But today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. David, when I look at this game, I think to me, it falls more on the offense than it does the defense, while both groups really struggled in certain aspects. But to me, it starts with the offense, and this has been a continual struggle all year long. When you're not able to throw the ball effectively and you're not throwing for big yardage and you're winning games, maybe that masks a little bit how much you might need it, especially in a game like this when you're trying to come from behind and put the game away. You just didn't have it. And I thought that Justin Herbert was Herculean in this one. But at the end of this, the Chargers settled for 5 field goals and a 15-17 loss, right? They've now gone 15 straight drives without a touchdown and haven't scored a second half touchdown since week 1. Putting up 15 points against the 5th worst defense in the NFL is just unacceptable. Dumb penalties at terrible times. 1 touchdown wins you this game. And you have Justin Herbert playing quarterback, and you can't get it. And that's just not good enough, David. No running game, not enough firepower, not enough from this Chargers offense.
Not enough, I think, is really the word that it culminates this performance tonight. I mean, and the thing that sucks is that Justin Herbert was fantastic. Like, he did absolutely everything he could to keep the Chargers in this game. But the Chargers had no running game. They had bad penalties and bad situations that really wrecked, their momentum. And they had multiple turnovers in this football game that they could not cash in on, that they could not really take advantage of. The momentum of those type of plays, it's great that they happen, but if you don't finish them, they don't mean anything. So it was just a myriad of problems in this game. It just felt, from the very beginning that it was going to be a dogfight, that it was going to be an ugly game, and it was an ugly game. And unfortunately, the Chargers did not put themselves in a position to come out of that ugly game on top.
And the thing is the Chargers want to be the time of possession team, and they dominated the time of possession in this game. But the problem is when you can't actually finish those drives, you're just giving Justin Herbert less chances to put points on the board, because they had almost 10 minutes more time of possession than the Cardinals had in this game, but they settled for 15 points on 5 Cameron Dicker field goals and also had a turnover inside of the 5-yard line, basically, from Jalen Reagor, which we'll talk about. But you can't be the team that wants to possess the ball but then can't finish once you get there and be efficient with those possessions, because
then it means nothing.
Where Justin Herbert is absolutely awesome. Like, it's crazy. I feel like I'm in crazy town when I have people comment to me, Justin Herbert's not the same. Justin Herbert isn't good anymore. It's like, are we watching the same game? Like, truly, he was 27 of 39 for 349 yards. He averaged almost 9 yards per attempt, 8.9 yards per attempt he averaged in this game. Every time he threw the ball, he was getting 9 yards, and his leading receiver in this game was Will Dissly. Like, he elevated the group around him. He played insane. I mean, out of those 12 incompletions, you have a couple of straight-up drops. You have a couple balls that probably should have got caught in tight windows, where if you have elite playmakers, they make those plays, even if it looks like a tough play. Sometimes you need guys to come up with that tough play. And there were just other times where guys were just absolutely stuck to in coverage, and guys are batting balls away from receivers who just aren't open. Like, Justin Herbert was phenomenal in this game. And when you have a guy like this that's playing at this level and is throwing for 350 yards and putting your team completely on his back, you have to be able to score more than 15 points. And for Greg Roman, a guy that, really has always had the best running attacks in the league, like he's always been good. It's always top 10. This is like the worst he's ever looked as far as his team running the football. You're not giving Justin Herbert the running game you said you were going to give him. He's balling out anyways, but now it feels like we've gone in a time machine where Justin Herbert's going crazy and the Chargers still aren't winning games.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that kind of rings true, at least from, what we saw in the beginning of the year, was that the defense was playing out of their mind. But the offense and the balance that, Greg Roman and all the rest of the coaching staff was, trying to, really talk up and say, hey, what would it look like if Justin Herbert had a running game? Well, we've only seen it a couple of times this year. And yeah, it looks good when they do, and it's able to, cover up some of the deficiencies of the offense. But the red zone offense is a really big problem. I mean, it is a massive issue that the Chargers have yet to correct. And when you can't cap off these great drives, these Herculean efforts from Justin Herbert, the performance doesn't even look the same. But this is, what he was able to do. 8 for 81 for Will Dissly, 4 catches for Palmer, 5 catches for Lab McConkey, 3 catches for Braden Fehoko. He was spreading the ball around. Simi Fehoko. I said Braden Fehoko. I'm so sorry. Simi Fehoko is out there balling out, making the most of his opportunities. But my point was, Justin Herbert was using everything at his disposal to try to will the Chargers to score points, to score touchdowns. But when it was, coming down to those points where they had to go out there and score a touchdown, they didn't have the firepower to be able to do it, unfortunately.
Yeah. A lot of really good drives, a lot of really good moments for this offense in this game. It just doesn't feel like it at all when you only come away with 15 points in a game where, again, 1 touchdown wins it for you. But it really was like I said in the little clip we put out after the game, like we should have known that this is the way this game was going, because on the first drive, Justin Herbert throws a bomb to Jalen Reagor, a 41-yard pass. And as he's potentially going into the end zone, he gets stripped inside the 5-yard line, fumbles it for a touchback for the Cardinals. In a play where you could have ended the touchdown drought right there, right? That was the closest they got to a touchdown the entire game. That was it. I mean, he had a chance for a touchdown there. They never really got close again. And then at the end of the game, you have the biggest third down of the game, right? An opportunity to get a first down, make Arizona use all their timeouts, a game to potentially even win the game with your offense on the field and get a chip shot field goal if you can get a first down. The Cardinals show blitz. Justin Herbert and Simi Fehoko are either not on the same page at all and completely thinking two different things, or Simi Fehoko cut his double move short that he was trying to run. But you don't even need a double move in that. If you're like, you have to have a better option on the third down. In the biggest point of this game, there has to be a better option for me than just throw it up to Simi Fehoko and float one up there and hope he can make a play. That's just not good enough. I'd rather have Lab McConkey on a one-on-one trying to do something different than that, and more high percentage play. It can't be an all or nothing play like that and then have it look that bad. But this was just a game of missed opportunities. Tart intercepts Kyler Murray, fumbles it, and gives it right back. Instead of the Chargers having a great possession deep inside Cardinals territory, it ends up first down Cardinals going the other way. And then the only Cardinals touchdown drive in the first half, James Conner stripped of the ball, and his own teammate recovers it for another first down. Like, so many brutal moments in this game, David, where it's no surprise. Like, it felt like if you make these mistakes, you lose that game.
Absolutely, 100%. The Jalen Reagor fumble was a backbreaker because, I mean, you wanted all season long to be able to see Justin Herbert go out there and throw it down the field and go make a big play. And he's wide open. There's no one anywhere around him. All he has to do is catch the ball, secure the ball, go forward or get out of bounds, and you're setting yourself up to score a touchdown if you don't get in the end zone yourself. And then, the fumbles that you created that you're not able to capitalize on, those are backbreaking plays. They kill the momentum when you can't capitalize on creating those turnovers. It is simply the difference between winning and losing. And we see it in all of the major losses, all of these chances to get back in the game, and they can't do it.
Yeah, it's a story. It feels like it happens all the time, and it felt like they had stayed away from those kind of moments under Jim Harbaugh. until this game, where it felt like the most Chargers game ever. But I think one of the biggest issues we have with this Chargers offense is just the total non-existence of this running game, which this team was built around, and also, if we're being honest, hasn't been good since week 2, really. So we're going to talk about that and just the lack of firepower for Justin Herbert to work with and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. The odds are already out on the Chargers for next week's game when they return home against the New Orleans Saints, and they're currently 7.5-point favorites. That's a big number, but I think it also tells you, well, the Chargers better figure things out quickly and take care of business, because these are games they absolutely have to win now, and they just gave this one away. So hopefully we can see a big response from this Jim Harbaugh team that just lost a very winnable game. But I also love that FanDuel has anytime touchdown scores, but I might need to look at some other teams because the Chargers can't actually score a touchdown. So I'll be staying away from them, but I'd be definitely looking at those second half unders for the Chargers point totals for sure. You guys can get started too with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. I also need to tell you guys about LinkedIn, because when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, because LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help set you free and find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours, so you can hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. That's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for their hiring, because the quality of candidates that you can get with LinkedIn, so you don't have to go and try to fill that job again very quickly. So you can post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. David, I don't think I'm done flaming this offense yet, because another thing that not only in this game has absolutely plagued this offense, but really for most of the season, is the running game or the lack thereof. I mean, last week we talked about it. Hey, put him near 120 yards of rushing. You did okay enough. Like you ran it, it wasn't totally non-existent, which is great. But it hasn't been good since week 2. This is the 4th consecutive game that the Chargers have not averaged 3.5 yards per carry or more. That seems like the bare minimum for a Greg Roman team. The Chargers offensive line was healthy going into this game, and obviously it stems to much more than just the offensive line. But David, to have this rushing performance against this team, we're talking about a team that had allowed 150 yards or more in 4 consecutive games. This is the team you can't run against. Like, to hear the broadcast the entire time say, oh, this Cardinals defense is fired up and playing much better. That's probably true, but I don't think they turned into all of a sudden the 85 Bears, right? Or the 2000 Ravens. Like, this was not a defense that they should have been afraid to run the ball against. And it ends up being 22 for 59 at a 2.7 yards per carry average. Not good enough, especially for a team that wanted to expense their wide receivers and their fancy skill position players so they could build this team through the trenches, so they could have a good running game and a good defense. Well, where's that good running game at?
What's the common theme in all of the Chargers' losses this year? The Chargers have rushed for less than 70 yards in all 3 of those contests. That right there is the biggest reason why the Chargers lose football games. When you have an offense that's set up and built, supposedly, to be able to run the ball effectively, and you have a savant, like a true rushing, scheming savant in Greg Roman, and he's a guy that's supposed to be able to scheme these things open, stay committed to the rushing attack. That did not happen in this game at all. I mean, yes, there was opportunities to throw the ball, but this was the team you were supposed to grind it out against. They gave up 153 rushing yards per contest going into this game. And then they magically learn how to be able to defend the run? No, that's more on the Chargers and their inability to execute and go out there and really provide good running plays for J.K. Dobbins and for Kamani Vidal to be able to go out there and execute. It just was a horrible performance all the way around. You can't be a running team and then not be able to run the ball. That's a little oxymoronic.
And I like the running backs, is there potential for them to do more with what they have in front of them? Sure. Was there anything that I could tell, at least from the broadcast angle in front of them? No. It felt like they were getting swarmed as soon as they touched the ball. It felt like they were getting hit at the line of scrimmage time and time again. And unfortunately, it's not even just that the running game isn't good. It's actually just a pure negative, because not only are you not able to run the ball effectively, you're putting yourself behind the stick. You're taking negative plays and not being able to actually stay ahead of the sticks with a team that you built to be able to run the football, not a team that you actually built to try to get 3rd and 10 pluses, right? That's not what this team is supposed to be good at. And Justin Herbert bailed them out of a lot of those situations, but it's just unsustainable. And when you have to try to do 15 play drives that take up 7 minutes of the clock, like, that's a lot of third downs that keep asking Justin Herbert to bail you out time and time again. Eventually, one's not going to connect, and you're going to settle for a field goal, and that's exactly what happened. I think the other part of just not being able to run the ball is that the Cardinals just straight up didn't respect the receiving options that the Chargers had. The Chargers said, beat us with Justin Herbert, and the Chargers couldn't do it. That's what you would hope. You would hope that they give you the opportunities they did. Justin Herbert took advantage of it, but it still felt like they didn't have the firepower they needed, especially in big moments on big plays. They didn't have the guy to go to in those spots.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have anybody to really target in the red zone. Not that they got there very often. They only got there once, and it was 0 for 1 in that situation. But they didn't have anybody to really provide those game-changing plays. You didn't have the outside of the one, the Jalen Reagor play that turned into a fumble. Besides that, you didn't really have any downfield shots. You didn't have anybody that, you feel like you could go to in the big moment to be able to, keep a drive alive or to be able to go score some points. They don't have that player on this team right now, and it's so very evident when Will Dissly is going out there and Justin Herbert's making Will Dissly look like one of the best pass-catching tight ends in the National Football League. That's how good Justin Herbert is, but Justin Herbert can only do so much. The Chargers desperately need to add something or someone to this room, to this receiving group, to spark some freaking offense, because we have not seen nearly enough of it, and it's starting to get really frustrating. You can't run the ball, you can't throw the ball, so what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they threw the ball well in this one, but like, when you keep putting yourself in bad situations, eventually there's going to be an incomplete pass. Like, that's just how it is, right? But when you're not able to get enough chunks to get you down the field quickly, to kind of, make yourself have to face less 3rd and longs, it's just going to always end up happening like this. And you're not going to be able to put the ball in the end zone consistently enough. And I just think that when you're seeing Jalen Reagor out there, a practice squad guy, and he is your wide receiver 3 from the jump, and the only actual big part of the offense that they were missing in this game was Quentin Johnston and the receiving core. This is, 85% of the receiving core we've seen all season. So I'm not going to, say the injuries to Quentin Johnston are what caused this total lack of firepower that we're seeing. I just think that, hey, if Jalen Reagor's going in a wide receiver 3 when you need a guy to go in, that says something about how you feel about your skill position players, and he was a net negative in this game as a wide receiver. But I think we were all hoping maybe Brendan Rice, right? Well, that was an absolute disaster in this game. Jalen Reagor got the jump and had all of the snaps early on as the Chargers wide receiver 3. We finally see Brendan Rice in a big moment in the red zone, David, right? And it looks like he doesn't know the play. Right, it looks like Justin Herbert's moving him from the right side to the left side, saying you're supposed to be on the left side. Then he goes to call for another motion. Him and Jalen Reagor are both moving in the wrong direction. The Chargers have to burn a second half timeout, which is super valuable. And Justin Herbert, it looked like, from what I could see, was lighting up Brendan Rice. I mean, it was either Brendan Rice or Jalen Reagor, but only one of those guys didn't play another snap for the rest of the game, David.
Yeah, and that was Brendan Rice. That was the only opportunity we saw him be able to get on the field. And I'm thinking to myself, why is it that it comes to this point in the game and this is the first time we're seeing Brendan Rice? Well, maybe this is the reason why we're not seeing Brendan Rice, because there's some obvious communication issues out there. And to me, from what I see, it doesn't seem like the Chargers trust Brendan Rice on the football field right now.
Yeah, which sucks, because he was making plays in training camp, and it's hard not to see a moment like that and extrapolate it out to say, hey, this is why we haven't seen him. He obviously doesn't know the playbook. He doesn't, they don't trust him on the field. But when you're seeing him inactive week in, week out, and there's already no DJ Chark, right, and you're missing Quentin Johnston in this game, and still they go out and they trust Jalen Reagor more than him. Like, it's
he
just
just
like,
got here.
it's just a pretty damning sign. Like I said, there's nothing we've heard or anything like that that says, hey, Brendan Rice is a problem. But like to see Justin Herbert that animated at a rookie who's only been in the play and one play he's in, and that happens, that kind of outsized reaction happens. It's a big moment in the game for sure. You hate to burn that time out.
Oh yeah.
But man, what a disaster. I mean, it's hard for me to call for more Brendan Rice after this, frankly. Like how can I? It just doesn't seem like they trust him right now. Maybe he's just not ready yet. Doesn't mean he can't ever be ready, but man, hard to advocate for it right now. And maybe that roster spot is better with an addition potentially from another team, because that seems like it would probably be where they would find it, right? But we still have more to get to because the defense has some culpability in this game as well. You give up 17 points against the defense that the Arizona Cardinals have. That's that bad. Your offense should be able to win that game. But the defense had its poor moments as well that we have to get into. So we're going to talk about that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about Game Time, because Game Time, if you're getting tickets to any sort of event, is where you should be going. And I'm not necessarily advocating to go watch the Chargers right now, because that was absolutely brutal to watch on Monday Night Football. But the great thing about Game Time is it's not just football. It's not even just sports. It's theater, comedy, music, whatever you're looking for near you, you can find those events with Game Time. And right now, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I like to think back to the Padre game I got to go to in the playoffs to get me away from the stink of this game that we just watched the Chargers play. But the great thing about Game Time is that they also have all-in pricing that you can toggle, and the exact price. And when you get to the checkout, there's no surprises. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. I think somebody probably should have told the Chargers it was game time, or at least their offense, when this game started, because they could have used that. But thank you to the everydayers for checking out today's show, because it is always tough listening to Chargers content, frankly, at times when they have a game like this. But we love the fact that we get to be here to vent and talk about what needs to change going forward, because this team has a lot of promise still, I feel like, after this game. But we appreciate the everydayers for making us your first listen on a day like today. If you need a second listen, make sure to check out the new slate at Locked On NFL. 2 shows a day. Tyler the Madman rolling in the morning, and Tony the Barber Wiggins in the afternoon, giving you the local experts from around the Locked On Podcast Network on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from. David, let's get to the defensive side of things, because I think there is definitely some culpability there, because this is a defense that's foundation is physicality, being able to stop the run, and they were dealing with some big injuries, especially in the secondary. There was kind of a makeshift unit out there. At the same time, David, felt like they got bullied by James Conner and this Cardinals running game a little bit.
It was one of the things that I was very worried about going into this game, was the physicality that James Conner brings to the table. And Guess what? It reared its ugly head, especially towards the end of the game. I mean, this is a guy who just runs with reckless abandon, like really, invites contact, loves contact, and goes out there and seeks it out. And he did in this football game, and he really wore on this Chargers defense. And then towards the end, they just could not really keep up with it, and it the dam kind of broke, and they were unable to really stop the Cardinals when the Cardinals wanted to do one specific thing, which was put them in position to win on a game-winning field goal, and they did exactly what they wanted to do. And that's because the Chargers were unable to stop James Conner all night and on that last drive.
Yeah, it was, and that last one is a reception, obviously, which basically was like, almost like 20% of
33-yard
Kyler Murray's entire day passing. I mean, Kyler Murray could really not get anything done through the air in this game.
No.
Like, if he has a decent performance, this game might even be uglier than the one that we watched. Yeah, he wasn't good. Chargers defense did a pretty good job as far as covering guys up and not giving him a ton of easy throws. But when the easy throws were there, he missed some and he made some. But it was the running game, especially Kyler Murray specifically running the football. We knew it, right? Crossover, we talked about it. The keys on Friday, we talked about it. Easier to talk about it than to actually tackle Kyler Murray, admittedly.
Yep.
But just not good enough, right? I mean, you end up giving up a 44-yard touchdown where he gets past Junior Colson. The Chargers lose contain and let him get outside to begin with. Probably a little bit of Khalil Mack and culpability there, too, on that play. Easier said than done, of course. But Junior Colson had him, right? Had an angle. Thought he had an angle on him. I'll say this. He was put in a tough position, right? Because he did have James Conner, who was kind of trying to cover as well. And he knew, hey, if I fully just go all out towards the sideline, he can probably just dump it over my head, right? And make a big play that way. It was kind of damned if you did, damned if you didn't. Also, where's the rest of the Chargers defense?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
I mean,
there's nobody anywhere.
It was
close
a good
to
play by the Cardinals to have it clear out to that extent, I guess. But still, once he does cross that line of scrimmage, once he does commit to the run, you have to take a better angle than that, because in this play, you're the last defender there, and you have to find a way to get that dude out of bounds. He took a bad angle. That wasn't unique to him. The Chargers took bad angles and tackled poorly for the entire game. The one time they really showed up was just the turnover and downs they caused, right? And short yardage, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. They get a big stuff on both those. Probably kind of on the Cardinals a little bit too. Not to take credit away from the Chargers, but like maybe not Clayton Tune and maybe that giant James Conner that's been breaking 1,000 tackles in this game, in those situations. But that's just me. But I think, it's just watching them get bullied a little bit in the running game, right? Allowing, over 6 yards per carry in the running game, allowing Kyler Murray to get loose like that. And also just the pass rush in general, David, not good enough. Not good as far as their lane integrity, and just didn't have enough pass rush production. And it's like, hey, it would be nice to have Joey Bosa, but without him, this isn't good enough.
It's not. 0 sacks in this game again, and another game where they just don't get a lot of pressure, or they don't really turn that pressure into game-changing plays.
Can't finish.
In this game, it didn't really even seem like they got particularly close to Kyler Murray, honestly. I mean, it really it was not great. And I understand that you have to try to keep contained and try to really keep your rush lane integrity here, because of what he can do.
To get put in.
And it's hard to be able to stay in both those situations where you can be ready for both of those things, which is what makes Kyler Murray so difficult to defend. And that's why we were so worried about it. That's why we were so scared about his rushing ability, because he is one of the fastest guys on the field whenever he's on any field that he's on, and he showed that in this game, and it really was crippling for this Chargers defense.
And he's just so small too. Like it's really hard to ask 300-pound dudes. It's why I wanted slot blitzes. Why I wanted smaller guys getting sent at him. And when they did send it, right, he caused a few errant throws. A couple times it just didn't get home. It just has to be good. It just has to be better, right? You have Tuli Tuipulotu. You have Bud Dupree. You went and signed him. We said they had the deepest edge group in the league. Doesn't look like it right now, because without Joey Bosa, that unit isn't doing enough. Hard to put it all on Khalil Mack, right? You need something else outside of him, and the pressure just has to get home. You have to get sacks. You have to put them behind the sticks. It's just not happening. But let's talk about the final drive, though, because this Chargers defense, at the end of the day, ended up only allowing 17 points, which in a vacuum, it's going to make you a top 5 defense most seasons if you're allowing that per game. But in this specific game, they allowed some loose plays. It got a little bad towards the end. It's very hard to ask your defense to protect a 1-point lead when you're kicking a touchdown and giving them the ball at the 30-yard line, right? Like, you're putting them 35 yards away from field goal range, and you're also giving them 4 downs to do it, right? That's the other hard thing about those end-of-game situations. It's a lot easier when you have 25% more downs to work with, 33%.
And all 3 timeouts, too.
And all 3 timeouts. But I think it was just how easy they got down, right, David? I mean, we're talking about 3 plays into the drive. You're talking about the Cardinals being on the Chargers' 22-yard line, where not only have they made it into field goal range, they've already made it into chip shot field goal range. Big call on the sideline, Cam Hart. That changed the entire complexity of that drive. I think it's ticky-tack. Was there a little bit of helmet-to-helmet contact? Sure. Should Cam Hart have played it better? Yeah, probably, right? Go through the hands, right? If you're trying to break up a pass there, we knew that having these young corners out there might cost the Chargers in situations. He could have played it better for sure. In that moment, I don't make that call. I don't make that call, because it gives him a first down. The next play, James Conner gets a catch from Kyler Murray, a check down that's actually behind the line of scrimmage. Honestly, I thought it was smart. A lot of people blaming Deion Henley. There was a blocker in front of him. Like, Deion Henley got blocked a little bit. That's a tough tackle to make when you have a 300-pound dude in front of you and you're trying to get to James Conner, who's getting a full head of steam. It was smart that they had him behind the line of scrimmage, because if he's 1 yard down, it's a legal man downfield and it's a penalty. So it was a smart play, but just so much room for Kenneth Murray, so much room for James Conner, so much room for these big plays. So obviously the penalty was terrible. It would have been 3rd and 10. Marvin Harrison Jr. dropped the ball on the sideline. It would have been 3rd and 10. You could potentially force a 4th and 10 and find a way to escape this game. It's not all about the Chargers defense losing this game on this drive. It was just hard to watch how easily the Cardinals instantly got into field goal range.
Yeah, and like I said, I do feel like it was a culmination of having to defend the very physical nature of which James Conner runs the football. I really do feel like that was a part of it. But when your best is required, when you really have to crack down and really have to get these guys off the field or do everything you possibly can to prevent them from moving up the field, it's got to be better than that. You just have to get them on the ground. You got to get him, off his spot. You got to knock him down. They just did not do that. And, it was one of the two explosive plays that the Chargers allowed all game. It was the Kyler Murray rush, the 40-yard rush, and it was this James Conner kind of behind the line of scrimmage, scamper for 30 plus. Those were the only two blemishes on what was another great Jesse Minter defensive performance, but it all goes for naught when you lose the football game.
Yeah, I mean, this was a game where the Chargers only had 8 possessions in this game, right? One of the other infuriating things is they only punted twice, the Chargers offense did. The Cardinals punted more, and the Chargers still couldn't get it done. They only allowed 3 scoring drives to the Cardinals, but they allowed one in the biggest drive of the game there. But like I said, very unfair to ask your defense to have to protect that, and it felt like when the Chargers couldn't convert on that third down, and the Chargers decided to kick that field goal to go up by 1 point when they have 2 minutes left and all 3 timeouts, it felt like it was coming, and that's why it felt like charging to me. When I know impending doom is coming, I know the Chargers are going to blow it. Obviously, this is only a 1-point game. That's a hard lead to protect in any scenario against any team when you have 4 plays to go get it done and you only need to get 30 to 35 yards. But to let it happen that easily was pretty jarring, and I think we've come to expect better of Jesse Minter, especially in those situations. You want somebody to be able to make a play there. But a lot to unpack from this game. The good news is we have our buy or sell show tomorrow, so you guys can call in with your biggest Charger storylines or overreactions, or hit us up at Locked On LAC to get your buy or sells on the show. You can also find the show every day by making sure that you subscribe to us on Twitter at Locked On LAC, on Instagram at Locked On Chargers, and on our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. And then you have to make sure you never miss the show by following or subscribing to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listening wherever you get your podcast from. Thank you for letting us bend with you guys. Obviously a tough game. This team has a stretch right now that they'll be able to make up for it, right? But they have to get some things figured out, whether that's adding someone offensively, whether that's just being better play calling wise, schematically, offensively, getting that run game going. A lot has to happen, but this season's far, far from over yet. So let's get to your guys' buy or sells tomorrow. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.